So here's the thing, as of right now, we have two categories that seem to matter clinically. We have autism spectrum disorders, and then we have allistics, which are not autistic people. The problem is that's not how it works. It's not like there's a line drawn in the sand, and if you cross over that line, you're autistic, but if you're on the other side, you're not autistic. In between those categories, there's something called the broader autism phenotype, and this is widely misunderstood. Traits that would indicate the broader autism phenotype include insistence on sameness, need for routine, special interests, hyperfixating, difficulty with eye contact, and maybe delayed speech. Basically, all the things that would contribute to an autism diagnosis. So that may lead one to ask, wouldn't that just be the same thing as autism? And while I see your point and kind of agree, the reality is that no, it's not autism. And the reason they know this is because they have done brain scans on people with the broader autism phenotype, and their brains are not neurologically the same as an autistic brain. But, and this is the important part, their brains also are not neurologically the same as a non-autistic brain. They are in the middle. Their brain does not develop exactly the same as an autistic brain, but they do have the same differences in a lot of the same areas neurologically, but they don't have all of the differences in all of the areas, and they're not as prominent. A lot of people that are autistic, because of their genetics, will have a lot of family members that do fall into the broader autism phenotype category. What complicates this is that doctors cannot see your brain when they are diagnosing you. So when they are diagnosing you with autism or saying you are not autistic, they can't see your brain, and they don't actually know what brain differences and neurological differences you actually have. And so they're really just making their best educated guess based on what they can see on the outside, which is why oftentimes they will tell people, you just don't seem autistic enough. What they're actually communicating, but not communicating, is that you seem to have subclinical autism, which means that you do have autistic traits. However, your impairment doesn't seem to be enough to get an actual medical diagnosis. And this is relevant because if there's no impairment, you don't need a medical diagnosis. Medical conditions only exist to diagnose an impairment that needs medical treatment. So if you do not have one, you don't need a medical diagnosis of autism. But studies have not shown what the outcome is of the broader autism phenotype. What happens when those people hit burnout? Do they start to seem more autistic? Probably. If they go through trauma later in life, can that make them appear more autistic than they did earlier in life? There are so many things that we aren't sure of. And I think that what the medical community needs to begin doing is educating people and saying, hey, you may not get the autism diagnosis today, but you do have the autism phenotype, and you can research how your brain works and what's best for you based on knowledge about your neurology.